Hi everybody, happy Sunday. We haven't had a single problem traveling in 2 years and then bam, everything went wrong. We're going to tell you all about it and all the lessons learned in this week's video.
We're Chris and Steve, an early retired couple who sold everything to travel the world full time. We share our nomad life, hikes, and vegan eats. Grab our book, 2 Carry-Ons and a Plan on Amazon and follow us on social. Subscribe to catch our video every Sunday.
Where are we?
We are in Sandakan, which is on the island of Borneo, and we're here to see the orangutans in the wild and to do a little scuba diving, but we almost didn't make it here. So, what happened?
Well, so the story starts back in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We arrived in Kuala Lumpur, we were there for 2 months, and we recognized that our passports were almost out of pages. So if you all know, back in 2016, the U.S. government said you can't add pages anymore to your passport. If you run out of pages, you have to get a new one. So we went over to the U.S. Embassy, we filled out all the paperwork, we paid the fees, and like 6 or 7 days later, we got our brand new passports. Yay! And by the way, they have new features in them now, so it's kind of cool to see a new passport. When we picked them up, the embassy said, oh, by the way, you need to go over to Malaysia Immigration because your entry stamp into Malaysia is in your old passport and the entry stamp needs to be in your new passport. So you just need to go over to the immigration office. They'll move that stamp over, and when you leave Malaysia, ultimately you'll have a combined set of entry and exit in one passport. So off we went to Malaysia Immigration. What happened?
Yeah, so it took quite a while, but we were able to get that stamp transferred. But actually what was inside our new passport was a letter, and the letter said, basically the way I read it was, you've got 30 days to leave Malaysia, which I thought was a little interesting because an entry stamp that we just had a month earlier, well, Chris had a month earlier. Anyways,
It's good for 90 days.
It's good for 90 days. So this one was very specific about we had 30 days to leave the country.
So for whatever reason, they were cutting our time short, but it was fine because all our plans were such that we were going to be gone in that 30 days, and we didn't think much about it. It did have this little line that said West Malaysia in it. We just said, and I thought, kind of my lesson learned there. I read it and I thought, this is a little odd. My gut says this is different, but you know what? We're not going to worry about it. It's going to be fine. So, fast forward, we finish our time in Kuala Lumpur, we head to Ipoh, we have a good time in Ipoh, we go to Penang. Penang was another little island off of the coast of Malaysia, the west coast, that a lot of expats live there, and the Thai Pusam ceremony was going on, which is an annual event for the Indians who live in Malaysia. They celebrate a few days of getting rid of evil spirits and kind of righting the wrongs of the season. And so we got a chance to see that. You're seeing pictures here of Thai Pusam Festival. And then we were done with that, and we went to the airport to fly over to Sabah. So we're going to give you a little geography lesson here.
Yeah, so Malaysia, there's 2 parts to Malaysia. There's the peninsular Malaysia, and then on the east is the island of Borneo. The island of Borneo actually has 3 countries. There's Malaysia, there's Brunei, a small country, and then Indonesia. And Malaysia itself is broken up into 2 states on the island of Borneo. There's Sabah in the north and Sarawak to the south. And we were going to Sabah in the north to do the orangutans and also for scuba diving.
So we go to the airport counter, and we were flying Firefly Airlines, which has a very restrictive rule that you can only have one carry-on pack bag onto the plane, and that's your personal item. Anything beyond 7 kilograms in your personal item has to be checked. So we're combined about 14 kilograms or 17 kilograms combined. Each person has 17 kilograms. So we had to check our bag. So we got in line to check our bag. We hand our passports, and things went a little sideways.
Yeah, I could tell that something was wrong when the person at the desk, picks up her phone to make a phone call. It's like, that's not a good sign. And she's texting, and she's
taking
pictures of our passports. And it took her about 15-20 minutes for her to come back and look up at us and say, I'm sorry, you have to leave the country. You cannot go to Sabah. You cannot go to Borneo. This paper that's in your passport is I contacted Sabah and they said, no, you can't come here.
Yeah, so no good deed goes unpunished. Here we tried to do the right thing and we got the wrong thing. So we still had some time left before our flight left. She said, go over and talk to the immigration at International Border Patrol there in the airport where people come in from international flights, see if they can help you out. So off we go. We talked to a lovely man and he said, well, all right, let me go make a phone call. So he goes and calls Kuala Lumpur. In the meantime, we're watching the clock. We watch our flight take off, but then our flight takes off.
Yeah.
And we thought we had time, but then our flight takes off, and he comes back, and he says, there might have been a little bit of mistake here, but the good news is Kuala Lumpur said you can go over to the immigration here where we were in Penang, and they'll take care of it in the morning. And we would love to host you for another night here in Penang.
For as long as you want. Well, not as long as you want, but
yeah.
But another little lesson learned is that when you're talking to somebody and they're giving you information that you need to pass on to somebody else, it's a good idea to get their name and do it in a very respectful way.
Right. So little did we know that these names would actually play big in trying to get everything corrected. But don't go I'm going to take a picture of your name tag. Don't do that. Just for me, most of these names are very foreign to me. It's not like it's Sally Jones, something very easy to spell. So I would hand them my phone and I would ask them, would you mind typing your name here? And so that if I need to reach back out to you, I can. And so when they think it's me that's going to reach out to them and not some official someplace, I think it's a little bit easier for people to give up their names and so on. Anyway, that ended up being very fruitful. So now we've missed our flight. We don't know if we're going to be successful at immigration. I'm a little irritated, and I say to Steve, I'm done. Let's just leave Malaysia. If we leave Malaysia, our problems will be behind us. Yeah. I'm done. Let's just go to Bangkok. We're done. Because I thought, I want to see the orangutan, but maybe it's just not the right time. We will see them sometime in the future. And Steve, if you know Steve, he's like this easygoing, cool as a cucumber, goes with the flow, never really gets conflicted, just kind of goes. And he says to me, I insist we go to immigration. And I was like,
I didn't say it like that.
Well, but what I realized was this was really important to him because he's really excited. He's got a scuba certificate. He wants to go to Sepadan, which is like the #1 place ever to scuba dive. It is really important to him that we get there. So I backed off and said, you know what? Let's get this corrected at immigration. And it ended up being a really good decision.
Yeah, it was. And so we left the airport and here's another, important lesson to learn. At this point, we could have really gone down the blame game, and we could have gone down a rabbit hole.
I can't believe you.
I told you, and you should have blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that's not good. So at this point, we need to make a decision. We're a team. We need to move forward. We can't look back. And I think that's a really important lesson to learn is that whatever happened in the past, it's happened. It's done. We actually even made a list at that point to say, okay, what's our decisions? What do we need to do? Who do we need to talk to? Where do we go? A, B, C?
Yeah, we had 3 decisions at that point. We could leave Malaysia, we could go talk to immigration, or we could just spend some time and try to work through a bunch of different things and try to figure out some solutions.
Right.
So we decided that we were going to go the immigration route. So we get this skanky hotel near immigration, got up the next morning, went to immigration, and that was a little bit of a challenge again.
Yeah, it was, and we go in the first line, and the first person says, this was Kuala Lumpur that immigration that put this letter in your passport. We can't do anything about it. You need to go back there and talk to Kale. And we were like, no. Is there somebody else who can help us? And we talked to it. And then, Chris was so nice to give me a compliment. I have to give her a compliment because some people can think of her as being sometimes a little bit direct and too direct and too bold. But she has this magic way of talking to people and helping them see that there's other possibilities and there's other ways of doing things. And this woman who twice, we told her what we needed, we told her what we wanted, we told her we thought there was a mistake, and could she help us? And twice she said no. And we asked again, Chris asked again, in a different way, and her answer was, okay, we can amend your visa to allow you to go to Sabah. And we were wow, we were like, okay, I was ready to just turn on my heels and head out, but we got a commitment from her that she could do it. Now, it's took a while. It took
Like
a
3 or 4
few
hours, yeah.
hours to actually to get that done. But we realized that by the time we were waiting, and we had our passports, we had an amended visa, we knew we could go to Sabah, and now we're deciding like we could go right now. There's a flight that we could actually get on, and we could actually head to the airport right now. Should we do it?
So right. So, but I think maybe as Americans or people, I don't know how to define this, but we certainly have come into this decision point thinking that getting in a cab and booking a flight in the cab on the way to the airport is just not how you travel. It's expensive. The flights aren't going to be available. There's going to be some problem. This is something we've never tried to do. So anyway, we decided to do it. We figured that we had in our decision tree of if then, if this happens, if that happens, we had figured out that if we had a cleared immigration and we had paperwork in hand by 10:30 or something, we could make the 1:30 flight to get us back on track to the plans that we had in Sabah. So I say, you call Grab, which is the Uber of Malaysia. You call Grab. I'm going to get on the AirAsia app. He's doing Grab, and I'm on Asia, and we're just going back and forth trying to figure out how to get to the airport in time, which was like a 40-minute car ride, and get the airline booked before 2 hours before the booking option closed. Anyway, we're like, boom. We get the flights. We get there. We get to the agent again. Hello, it's us again. And
Not the same agent.
And she sees that the letter had been changed from West Malaysia to Malaysia, which allowed us to be able to go to Sabah. And we learned a really important lesson that here in Malaysia, each state, or there's conglomerates of states that have their own immigration. So even though you have permission to go to one part of Malaysia, you don't necessarily have permission to go to the other part, which was the crux of the whole problem that we had.
Right.
So once we got that fixed, off we go. We landed in Sabah last night, and here we are getting some paperwork and things done. And it's an office day and a decompression day. And then tomorrow we head out to see the orangutan and so on. So what videos are we going to bring to you next week? All the orangutan and scuba diving and all that's going to happen. We're going to share with you next week.
I think we need to summarize what are some of the
yes.
lessons. What are some of the lessons learned? The first one was support your partner, and some things that are important to you are not going to be easy. That it's worth fighting for, and it's worth going the extra effort for.
Right, and don't look backwards. Look forward. When stress happens and things go wrong, don't recreate the history. Just try to move forward and see what you can do moving forward without blaming and without getting stuck on a he said, she said scenario.
Yeah. And then the last one for me was about spontaneity. Is about being in a cab on the way to the airport, booking your flights. You can do it. And
what we learned was that if we went the same day flight versus the next day or 2 days later, it was only $25 difference between today and tomorrow and the next day. And we thought that's just a cab ride back and forth. So let's just go ahead and do it and get back on track to what we're going to do. A big eye-opener to maybe things aren't as expensive or as difficult as you think they're going to be. You might actually be able to pull something off the day of. So that might be a lesson as we move forward. We've got some flexibility in our schedule coming up with no plan. So maybe we just go to the airport one day and say, we'll take that flight. We'll see. Stay tuned for that. What lessons learned have you had as you've traveled? What disasters have you had? How did you overcome them? You teach us some lessons learned about when things went wrong in your travel, because I'm sure they probably have. See you next week, and thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe. We love you guys.